A lot of you guys just don't understand the cultural impact OG Maco had on early 2010s rap, and you might not think much of his music. In fact, I bet some of you didn't even know this man ever existed before the news broke. But I'm confident by the end of this video, you'll see why OG Maco was one of the most influential figures to ever grace modern day hip hop. Special shout out to my man Jay's World V1 for collaborating with me on this project.
What's good, y'all? It's Jay. Happy to be on this video. Kind of go over the OG Maco tragedy.
A key component to many artists' creativity is their past, and OG Maco has one that you simply can't ignore. OG Maco was born April 23rd, 1992 in College Park, Georgia. His family would grant him the name Benedict Chiajalam Isaba Jr., presumably named after his father. OG Maco would grow up on the south side of Atlanta with both parents in the picture, an increasingly rare sight in the black community. His parents made do by running and owning a high-end car service for a while, and later his dad worked as an engineer for AT&T. Though his upbringing was stable, the surrounding area wasn't, with many gang members and gang bangers creating an unpredictable and dangerous atmosphere for local residents. It wouldn't take long for Maco to suffer a great loss due to senseless street violence. When he was just 13, his best friend Dale, who he considered a brother, was killed while trying to protect one of Maco's cousins.
Before and happening today, a man accused of killing 2 teenagers in Fulton County will finally face a jury. 6 years ago, police found the unclothed bodies of 15-year-old Dale Mattox and his cousin, 13-year-old Cassandra Kimball, in the woods. The 2 teens were stabbed to death, and then the very next day, police arrested 29-year-old Jeremy Moody.
A lot of the times back then, people was dying because it was a shootout, or some ish, or some reckless ish, or you did something, he remembers. But it was just like this dude. This dude just came and strangled him and stabbed him, and it was real strange. I was outside and we were playing basketball, and there was a helicopter near the house. And we're seeing the helicopter the whole time, and we're like, something happened. OG would later adopt Dale's last name to pay homage to his best friend, penning the alias Maco Mattox. In 7th grade, Maco would attend Bear Creek Middle School in Fairburn, Georgia. It was here that he would actually meet someone who would create an incredible music career in their own right. This person would of course be Larry Eugene Hendrix III, or simply better known to many as Larry June. Maco and Larry, alongside a third member of their group nicknamed B-Easy, would become best friends over time. The trio would make music in the school's orchestra room using a piano as a beat machine, utilizing the pre-recorded samples stored in the piano to create their own sound. It was admittedly nothing special, but they created their own special moments by freestyling together and just having fun. However, it's important to note that Larry was actually very serious about his craft back then, even in middle school, whereas Maco was just utilizing the moments as leisurely entertainment. At the time, Larry was under the moniker Young June and even had CDs and mixtapes made showcasing his skills on the mic.
Well, before he went back to California, he moved to Atlanta. He ended up going to Riverdale High, but he went to Bear Creek Middle School. So it was like, Larry was just like he is now, you know what I'm saying? He was like super cool, but some people took it as a way to think like he went with him. So I was one of the only people that was just like, let me see what bro talking about. And we just kind of clicked.
Maco was very supportive of Larry, even helping him out by passing CDs and mixtapes to other students at school. But Maco didn't think he had the chops for it really, so he never took music seriously. That is until junior year high school, where he and some friends would form a hardcore rock band titled Dr. Doctor. Now, just to be clear, OG Maco was well versed in music even at a young age, with him and his older sister learning to play the violin, and even a close older cousin of his learning to play the viola. Combine that with his backup guitarist work in Dr. Doctor, Maco had the talent to play 2 different instruments, and this is something I don't see mentioned very often. Nevertheless, he would attend Creekside High School in a rural part of Fulton County to the southwest of Atlanta where his aunt lived. Maco would go on to say, it was like chickens when talking about the scenery. It's unclear who was actually in Dr. Doctor, but as far as we know, it was composed of Maco, a friend who simply was known as Will, and a few others. And this just wasn't a random thing he was sucked into. He was a huge fan of hard rock, with him recalling a time he attended the Warped Tour wearing his book bag and skate-high Vans, looking out for Devil Wears Prada, Dance Gavin Dance, and even Pierce DeVille. So needless to say, both Maco and his friends took music very seriously at this time, and would practice diligently at Will's house. Maco was placed into the role of lead vocalist and backup guitarist for the band, but they really weren't too confident of their skills to actually perform. Maco and others often wondered to themselves if they were just holding the band back, with Will primarily taking the mantle as easily the most skilled and competent member in the band. This insecurity would only bubble inside the group, and to make matters worse, one of the members had suggested they play live at the school talent show. Quick sidebar. Did you know that Maco also went to school with Gunna?
We actually went to high school together.
Oh, you and Gunna?
Yeah, me and Gunna went to high school together. Yeah, we both went to Creekside.
The group was working hard to stand out at the talent show. So when the big day came, they would go on stage and perform in front of their entire school.
We used to go to my boy Will's house and like we practiced, and like our very first show is like as corny as it sounds, it was like a school talent show.
And much to everyone's surprise, they were actually good.
It was fucking awesome. Could never record our music though, because we didn't have any money to like pay for a rock recording session, which is way different than a rap recording session. We just need a mic and a closet. You need like actual shit. So we never got to record anything, but it was hard though. Live shows was crazy.
With Dr. Doctor receiving a lot of praise, it seemed like they were on the path to success. But the band didn't have any real money to record in the studio. And even if they did, they still weren't confident in their skills enough to justify making the leap to getting in the studio. I mentioned it before, but Maco's friend Will was really carrying the band. To put it simply, if Maco and the other members were a coughing baby, Will would have been a hydrogen bomb. The difference in their skills was staggering. It just didn't make sense to invest all of that money into the product. So unfortunately, this rock phase was rather short-lived. After graduating, Maco went on to Georgia State University and majored in film and philosophy. One thing I didn't mention was Maco's street antics, with him fully jumping off the porch at the age of 15.
I always dabbled before I got serious, 12, 13. Serious, probably like 15. When I was really, we wanted to go do what we do.
In college, his attention was split between making money, making music, and getting good grades. With him incrementally ramping up week after week, he chose the street life over getting a proper education. Maco would be a part of a group titled It Was Us at the time, spearheaded by his friend Splurge. Splurge was directing and bankrolling this entire movement. Similar to how Eazy-E bankrolled NWA, Splurge was making tons of paper and was putting money into people's pockets. The group, It Was Us, were known for beating up people in the club and beating the living crap out of promoters that didn't play their music. With Maco stating, quote, "We didn't need them to like our music. It's hard and we know it's hard. So what we're going to do is tell them play it. And if they won't play it, then we're going to beat up everybody in the party." Splurge was, quote, a real man's man, macho guy. He had been savaging his whole life. Maco remembered playing some music for Splurge that would eventually go on to one of his projects titled Gifts. He was like, "There's a way out. You know what it is. I'll put all my money behind your," and he died the next day in the shooting. This loss, much like the loss of his friend Dale, would hit Maco hard. It would be these two deaths that would change the trajectory of his life forever.
OG Mac, right?
OG Mac, newest member. QC label.
OGG. Was that notified?
Shit, man, how this all came about, man.
Shit, man. This nigga called me.
Man, just thinking about losing two close friends less than 4 years apart, that's tough. After Splurge died, Maco would dip himself deep into the streets and get much more serious, with him even dropping out of GSU to fill Splurge's shoes.
I was getting all this money, but that shit wasn't fulfilling. You know what I'm saying? Like, you getting it, but it ain't nothing you like really proud about. You feel like you can't really go tell your mom I just jugged 30,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't some shit you want to hear.
It's never been elaborated on much, but when Maco was 19 years old, he got tied up in an armed robbery case that would have him facing 20 years behind bars.
How many years were you facing?
20 plus. 20 was guaranteed. The plus was whatever, so.
Okay, and how old were you?
19. Facing 20.
What ultimately happened? Did they drop the case?
Yeah. God bless the victim and the judge.
Maco was only in custody for 3 months and house arrest for a little over a year. However, it was later revealed that he was on probation for several years, even when he made, you guessed it, and was doing shows around the country. But we will get into the repercussions of that a little later. I couldn't find the actual record of this arrest, but another user apparently did and claimed OG had snitched. Then another user interjected and said his partner had snitched, and either way it tracks with the time being reduced. Although I really doubt OG snitched simply because he was still street affiliated after all this happened. Many people think OG Maco created OGG. This is not true. However, he was there at its beginning stages to help brainstorm the name of the group. One of his friends was a DJ for 2-9, which was a collective from East Atlanta, Georgia. This friend told Maco that he had a lot of serious potential, even commenting on the fact that Maco was actually making a lot of money and living the lifestyle that many rappers were bragging about in real life. The only thing wrong was Maco wasn't really on the internet, so his online presence was non-existent. And so they came up with a plan to change this. One night when he was in Florida, his friend X and a DJ that I presume was the co-founder of OGG, DJ Bluetooth, showed up at the door of his hotel room at 4 a.m. with the apparently urgent idea of forming a new rap collective that Maco would head up. This group would of course be OGG.
Before it was OGG, it was actually Brainless Club, but you know, it moved on to OGG, so we had like our own thing. And then, you know, Mac has like always been my brother. He actually one of the people that taught me how to hustle, so you feel me? I knew him from the block. Shout out to Auburn Ave.
Over time, Maco would create several projects with him initially going by Maco Mattox. Marty McFly the mixtape dropping late 2011, 10 Moons dropping early 2012, Public Speaking mid-2012, which sounds almost like an odd Future cut. He lyrically rips this. Also, this is pretty funny, but Maco technically coined the phrase young N-word in terms of how we use it today in slang. I'm specifically talking about the Zoomer, quote, YN usage of the phrase, which is honestly pretty hilarious. It even predates the earliest Urban Dictionary ad by 4 whole months, although I'm sure others used it colloquially at the time in a more normal or traditional fashion. After these projects, Maco Mattox would finally evolve into the OG Maco we know and love today, releasing Live Life 1 early in 2014 and more notably linking with Key on the joint project Give 'Em Hell, which was released July 8th, 2014. This mixtape would actually have both You Guessed It and Roadrunner on the track list, although the version of You Guessed It on this tape had Key featured with his very own verse. It's unclear why Key was removed from the original version, but I'm pretty sure this is the reason why he and Maco started beefing in later years. Something I thought that was interesting was the way You Guessed It was made. At the time, Roadrunner was the song that many people thought would be Maco's breakout hit. It was doing well at parties and it was very memorable, so it seemed like a no-brainer to add that to the mixtape, with Maco even stating Roadrunner was going crazy. It was in all the little college parties, all the little college kids knew it. I've been road running. And then I got drunk as F one day and I realized what Roadrunner was doing. And I told my manager, look man, we got a song that's building up. It's building. When Roadrunner blows, we need to have everything aligned. So I need you to make me some beats.
In the lab making beats, and I remember before he left out of town, we all lived at his house. He went to Indiana for a week, and he's like, bro, I'm gonna go out of town and fuck my bitch. Stay here and make beats. And he's like, bro, you better have my 10 beats when I get back. And sure enough, he gets back. How many beats you got? Bro, you know I only got 4, because he's yelling, I'll be like, chill, bro. I was about to play the first beat, and I'm like, nah, bro, you gotta freestyle to it before you hear it, since you OG Mac, right? You Maco, right? OG Mac, yeah, OG, like, all right, bro. And he like literally one take, you guessed it. Like as soon as you can hear the chicken grease popping in the beginning, bro. We were cooking chicken and everything. We were just having a good ass time. Nigga was drunk as fuck. I'm high as fuck. Well, as soon as he was like,
I literally was just drunk, and that's where it came from. I was with my shorty, and I got drunk, and I came home, and my engineer was being a dickhead, and he didn't make what he was supposed to make. So I went upstairs, came back downstairs and slapped his ass in the back of the head and took the headphones and told him press replay on the beat he made. And before he could do that, I told him press record. And I said what I said.
I was telling him to get this ish like in 2 weeks. So I finally got there and he made me no beats when I came back home. I walked upstairs and I was drunk. At first I was like, let's let him live, you know? F it. I got so mad, I came downstairs and I was like, man, turn on a beat. And before he could even turn around, I was like, F that, man. Give me the headphones. I put the headphones on and press record. I said, press play. He was like, but you ain't heard it. I don't give a F. Press play. So I just drunkenly freestyled that ish. It was basically like a drunken rant. If you got drunk as F and just recorded a drunken rant, that's what it would sound like. But mine, like that.
People gotta understand that when I made You Guessed It and I heard it the next morning after, you know, being drunk, the first thing I said is it's the stupidest song I ever made. Me and the whole OGG, we all listened to this shit. You know, and they listening to You Guessed It like, bro, this shit trash. Like, man, you delete this shit. And I'm like, nah, this is just that garbage that it's going. And people hate to hear me say it, but shit, it's only because people so fucking stupid that song is going. People are idiots. And they only want to enjoy immediately your dumbest shit because when you put them on something that's, you know, higher or is more lyrical or is deeper, have anything, they immediately try and push that shit out the way, not because it's but because they don't want to say, hey, I'm stupid and I don't understand this. Honestly, I'm happy the record makes people happy. Other than that, fuck that shit.
Ooh, like the initial, ooh, I can't even do it. I got the flu right now. He did that shit with so much energy, like it was like the room shook. He just looked at me and I was like, oh shit. That's it, bro. And then right after that, he's like, bro, this would be crazy if it blew up on Vine.
And he was right, because one of the many reasons this song blew up was specifically because of Vine. If you're too young to know what Vine is, then you shouldn't be allowed on the internet. Vine was the TikTok before TikTok. Founded June 2012, it only took 4 months from its creation for Twitter to buy the platform for over $30 million. OG Maco would have support from J. Cole and Jordan White. These would be some of the first already established people to really vouch for Maco during his initial buzz. The You Guessed It music video would drop August 2014 on YouTube with an almost immediate 3,000 views, which back in 2014 was very impressive. But of course, it didn't stop there. In just a few short weeks, it would explode to over 3.5 million views, and month after month, it would continue to exponentially grow beyond anyone's wildest dreams, effectively making OG Maco an overnight sensation. And you guys have to understand, back in 2014, having a video hit just 1 million views meant you were at the pinnacle of attention. You were the very definition of super viral. OG Maco had 3 times that in less than a month, and the views just kept rolling in.
He was a huge part of my childhood. A lot of people's childhood, I'm sure. Every single person that clicked on this video willingly, you know that hit song. You know exactly which one I'm talking about.
You guess I'm still with my coming Texas.
Absolute legend in my eyes. I say he paved a way for a lot of young out now.
With the track peaking at number 90 on Billboard Hot 100, all eyes were on OG Maco and what he and the collective behind him had up next. The track was phenomenal at the time, extremely unique in several ways and very catchy to boot. OG had a minimalist beat with an explosive vocal delivery that was simply unheard of at the time. This track would single-handedly start the Atlanta scream rap wave, with many artists taking inspiration from OG. OG would quickly sign to Quality Control Music and get slated for the XXL Freshman list directly after that. The label Quality Control, or QC in short, was created by Kevin Coach K. Lee and Pierre P. Thomas. Coach K was actually the one to get 2 Chainz on the remix for You Guessed It, making the single a certified smash hit. OG went on an impressive tour and interviewed with everyone to promote his music, even doing fun videos on the side with smaller outlets to push the OGG label.
I feel like right now the city of Atlanta, through the new generation, you know, like me included, 2-9, you know what I'm saying, Spillville, Shout out to my nigga G, Earth Gang, them. All of us are seamlessly working together and interchanging. Your talent is really was driving everything. It's really beautiful what we're doing right now. So shouts to all the young niggas in the world right now who just keep fucking snapping.
While some people pegged OG Maco as a simple artist, others saw the immense creativity he had showcased with his work on You Guessed It, and amply waited for a full-length record. But honestly, Maco hated that song, stating many times in multiple interviews that he made the dumbest thing possible to control the masses. This, in my opinion, is where he really messed up. Your fans don't want to be called stupid or dumb for liking your music. Even if it was an overly simple or even stupid song, they don't want to be belittled by listening to your track. This rhetoric Maco would constantly repeat would only alienate his growing fan base and make him look like a poopy butthead. OG Maco would drop his mixtape Gifts shortly after that on September 4th, 2014. And I gotta say, this is literally one of his best projects, and is actually the project Splurge heard the day before he died. It's lyrically dense, the wordplay is insane, and it almost sounds like a mix of Capital Steez and J. Cole. This mixtape literally doesn't get talked about enough. There's a couple of articles that reference him releasing it, but that's about it. Most people don't even know this project exists, which is pretty depressing. It's literally a work of art. You guys should check it out. OG Maco went from a sort of screamo Atlanta rap to straight conscious for this entire project, which shows an incredible amount of range in his music. Maco is essentially the blueprint for a XXXTentacion, and I'm not just saying this, even X himself agreed with this take, although we will cover the exact circumstances of that story much later inside this video. The fact of the matter is, OG Maco was doing a wide variety of different sounds before it was ever cool. It was just unheard of for any artist at this time to dip dip into so many pockets. It also just generally a hard thing to do without a solid cult following, as the constant switch-ups could sometimes confuse and turn off fans.
I think that same year you did a tape with Key too?
Yeah, we did Give 'Em Hell, which kind of, well, not even kind of, that really set the standard for all the music to come afterwards. You know
really?
What I'm saying? Like all of the artists that came afterwards, like there's not a single one of them that wasn't a huge fan of Give 'Em Hell or a fan of me or Key or both of us. You know what I'm saying? So that tape, it really set a lot of stuff off for Atlanta, and it changed a whole lot of stuff for the rap game.
But this is the part in the story where things start to take a turn for the worse, because Maco would go online and publicly hash his frustrations with Beyonce over her 7-Eleven music video, basically saying Beyonce stole the concept from You Guessed It in her presentation. But if we look at both videos, it's clear that Beyonce was simply going for a music video, essentially made out of vines. A lot of the clips used in 7-Eleven are repeated and extremely short, whereas You Guessed It has several long, unrepeated cuts with different effects. The only real thing the two have in common is that they are both at what appears to be a hotel. It also just didn't help that Maco was found out to have said many things about Beyonce over the years that were just completely disgusting. This would of course cause the Bayhive to attack Maco in full force. Unfortunately for him, this would spark the beginning of what one could only call a downward spiral. For some weird and strange reason, OG Maco and his label decided to release the OG Maco EP in November of 2014. Now to be clear, this project is phenomenal. It garnered mainstream appeal, was critically acclaimed, matched exactly what people were looking for after You Guessed It. This record checked all of the boxes, with guest features from 2 Chainz, the Migos, Jers, OG Brian Kerr, OG Jr., who I think is actually OG Maco rapping in a different register, Zeus, Man Savage, Johnny Cinco, and Zip K. OG Maco couldn't fail even if he wanted to.
OG Maco EP. From OG Maco. This guy's an Atlanta rapper who is kind of hot right now, off some buzz that he got on a viral single titled You Guessed It. I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this thing,
Transition, this project had it all in terms of raw influence on the Atlanta scene. It literally paved the way for so many different acts that would come in the future, which is why I and many others were confused as to why it was released for free as an EP. This was album level quality, literally months after his first smash hit. It's a no-brainer to drop this as an album. He would have easily sold at least 30 to 40K first week as a brand new artist. Like, literally, listen to 12 Bricks. You can't tell me Maco wasn't ahead of his time. This, in my opinion, would be the first major business mistake of his career. Mid-2014, an unarmed man would be killed after being put in an illegal chokehold by police. This man was Eric Garner. Eric pleaded with police, repeating the phrase, "I can't breathe." He would repeat this a total of 11 times before he'd suffocate to death. Needless to say, this death and many other police brutality cases sparked immense outrage throughout the country. OG Maco was always very political in nature. He often griped about other cultures taking black culture or simply using and profiting off of black aesthetics while simultaneously not acknowledging where said aesthetics came from, or straight up just jacking the credit entirely.
But how long are black people gonna be black people and get shunned for years, and then as soon as white people think it's cool, they come take it? Or Asian people think it's cool, they come take it? How long? You know what I'm saying? Like, and we don't say shit. Why? Because they kill us when we say it? F it, I don't care. It's the truth. They take all our shit. Everybody take all our shit, our whole culture, and then we get nothing for it. Not only do we not get any money for a conversation, they act like we didn't even make it.
So, while America began to protest, he would create the Brief EP, which featured 3 tracks that were socially charged. This would also be another EP where Maco would show off his immense lyrical ability on the mic, creating socially conscious anthems like Get Down and rallying people to fight for change. Quick note, I want you guys to keep track of the fact that Maco still, at this point, hadn't dropped his debut album. 1 month later, on the first day of 2015, literally January 1st, 2015, Keith Ape would upload a track that would go mega viral in its own right. This track blowing up with the very obvious influence of You Guessed It should have gave everyone behind OG Maco a huge smile on their face. He and his camp should have been basically tripping over themselves to get Maco on the remix for this record. This song single-handedly proved to the entire world that You Guessed It wasn't a fluke. It proved that there was a consistent market for songs like You guessed it. Maco basically created his own subgenre of music without even realizing it. And this is where the second major mistake of his career would occur. OG Maco would go on a tirade about Keith Ape stealing his song.
A Korean rapper named Keith Ape,
Yep.
who made a song that kind of sounded like...
Not kind of sounded like, it's not a kinda. Definitely is a, that's all that is. Cool with Keith, he all right. Met up with him in South by. He has a whole career based off a knockoff of my song. It happens.
It would later be revealed in another interview that OG Maco managed to get Keith Ape to sign away 45% of the publishing of OG Maco.
A question for you, because after you guess it popped off, you know, like the Japanese rappers came out and kind of did.
I own that song. They Korean.
Oh, they're right. So I want to see how. I want to know how you felt about that, Keith Ape and the entire.
I kidnapped that and made him sign the contract, and I own that song. I own 45% of the song.
What the?
And the remix.
Whoa. Hey, man, you know the...
While this would be looked at as a W by many onlookers, in reality, OG Maco had made a critical mistake. By scaring away any possible early adopters of this sound, a sound, mind you, that Maco himself seemed to hate with a passion, it would effectively kill any momentum of him starting his very own wave. The nice thing about OG Maco, though, is that he was still pushing the general Atlanta scream rap in his music, so he still gave influence to many artists regardless. Although, I can't stress enough that OG's team not advising him to exploit the hype around You Guessed It and really milk that avenue for all that it was worth was a bad move. He traded having his own space entirely for evolving a sound that Waka Flocka and Lil Jon started.
Are you the one saying the OG Parker tag?
Yeah. So Parker was my second producer ever. Deco was my first. People think it was Brandon, but Brandon was actually like OGG's producer. But like, so far as like my personal producers, it was Deco and Parker. And like when I met Parker, he was actually Pretty Boy Parker was his tag, and I was like, bro, that's not gonna work. You can't be Pretty Boy Parker, bro. We gotta switch that shit up. And so it took us like 3 seconds to just decide on OG Parker.
So he drops that shit. So then he called me one day. He's like, Coach K just hit me up. Like, they trying to sign me to QC. This is when the Migos going crazy, handsome and wealthy and all that. So he go up there. That nigga signed the deal right then. So I'm in Georgia State. I'm walking into class. I think I'm walking into like in calculus or something. That nigga was like, yeah, I signed. I turned my ass right back around. You at the studio? I said, bet, I'm about to Uber right to the studio.
Left school?
Never went back.
What?
I never went back.
And then when we got to QC and we did the song, we did No Pressure, you know, I was like, you know what, this is the perfect time. It's a song with Zaytoven. It's gonna be on the actual album. We might as well like put the tag in there. And, you know, I did the OG Parker and
legendary.
OG would continue to drop more music at the time, dropping his joint project titled Yup with Rome Fortune, which is a pretty good EP. OG and Rome are pretty consistent throughout the entire length of the project. The first track is kind of crazy, the beat is literally insane, and the way Maco slides on this, you would think he was Danny Brown. Standout records here are Yup, Jungle, and Pay Rent. Maco would then lead into February of 2015 with yet another controversy. This one pressing from a tweet that simply said, quote, I'm a proud Meninist. Now, honestly, he was just joking around with this.
Look, bro, this is the funniest shit. People are stupid. A Meninist isn't even a real thing. It's a Twitter. But even if it was a real thing and I did support it, why the would you care? If a girl comes out and say I'm a feminist and I say, fuck you, bitch, you're a feminist, fuck your life, everybody gonna hop on my head and be like, how could you dare say that? But someone comes and says, you know, you're a Meninist, and now there's all these questions about it. A Meninist is a Twitter that I found was extremely hilarious, and now I just said, hey, I'm a Meninist, and then there was all this backlash from it. So.
There were people who were outraged about this tweet, but I'm gonna be honest, a lot of Maco's controversies are pretty silly.
Hey man, it's OG Mac, aka Maco Mattox, here with Dre O everywhere you go. OGG.
OGG. He can be called many things, but nobody can call him lazy. His work ethic was always consistent, and this is highlighted even more with Maco dropping yet another project only a couple weeks after Yup. This one being 15, which I believe is one of Maco's most introspective records. It's also a pretty solid body of work, with several amazing guest verses from the Migos, that being 2 offset verses with 1 takeoff verse across 3 different songs. Features from Skippa Da Flippa, Johnny Cinco, and Cushy Stash. It's unfortunate that this record didn't get more attention, but at this point, Maco was being pigeonholed and there was nothing he could really do about it. Things would only continue to ramp up for Maco in the form of drama, with him beefing with rappers Taxstone and Manolo Rose. You see, Manolo Rose started copying OG Maco's style a bit, taking certain isms, etc. OG then linked with Manolo and praised him for his work on hit song Run Ricky Run. They chopped it up. Manolo offered OG Maco to get on the remix. OG got on the remix and then immediately pulled a Kendrick Lamar and dissed Manolo on his very own song. Manolo felt a type of way about it, but was like, it's whatever. Later on, OGG had a show in Austin. While Manolo was performing, Maco started realizing that not only did Manolo steal his sound on his hottest song, but Manolo also had stolen Maco's entire swag on several of his shows, which really pissed Maco off. He got so mad that he started throwing water down on Manolo while he was performing. Manolo understandably got pissed and called his crew to go upstairs. They ran up 12 deep versus 50 OGG members, and due to security, they decided to do it somewhere else, or at least that's what they claimed. These silly ninjas actually took the time to stop at a store and buy a bunch of silverware before spinning back. And no, this isn't some type of clever euphemism for a more sinister, kind of deadlier weapon. They literally purchased kitchen knives in response to this to make up for the difference in numbers.
They started like throwing water down at us, and like I didn't know where the water was coming from, because like we was throwing water on stage too, but they were like throwing water on top of us. Manolo was like, yo, we going upstairs. So when we get upstairs, Manolo like walks in OG Maco in them section, and he's like, yo, oh, y'all can suck my d. So I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, it's lit. I'm like, what the f is he doing? We running back down on this dude tonight at the Elmore. We know everybody gonna be at the Elmore because this happened in South by Southwest. So I was like, yo, that. We ran down on them. We had mad kitchen knobs, and we put knobs to them, and they ain't want it.
Maco told his ops that OGG had another show at Ill Roots, so if they still wanted to smoke, they could pull up. But by the time everyone arrived, the club's station police were already posted outside the door. Manolo's people ran up but decided to stop the beefing, but not before flashing their brand new set of kitchenware. It wouldn't be much longer after that when OG and Manolo would officially squash their beef for good. And apparently they even made a song that had a beat by Clinton Sparks, verses from Lil Uzi Vert and OG Maco with Manolo on the hook. This song exists and probably should be dropped.
Yeah, it's dead. Me and Manolo got records coming out. You know what I'm
really?
saying?
That's
Me
what's
and Manolo
up.
got records coming out.
I'm a fan of both of y'all.
Yeah,
you know
I fuck with Manolo. I fuck with Manolo as a person. I just, like I said, it was my own immaturity at the time, because I already knew that what was going to happen, how it happened now with all these people still in my wave and shit. I already knew it was going to happen anyway.
After all of this unnecessary beef, Maco would lock in and drop 4 separate EPs over the span of just a few months, with the first being I Made This Ish Before You Guessed It, dropping March 2015, OG Zay, which dropped April 2015, Tax Free with Pablo Dillon, dropping May 2015, and OGG Everlasting, dropping June 1st of 2015. Quick side note, it's basically impossible to listen to any of these songs on SoundCloud because some loser hacked OG Maco's account and basically put his name on every track. Not only this, but he even uploaded his own tracks trying to make it seem like OG Maco fucks with him, when in fact Maco literally never did. This should be impossible to do. This is why SoundCloud is a garbage and dying platform. Key tracks from all the before mentioned projects were, in my opinion, Who Came to Party featuring Jid. Maco matches and I dare say exceeds Jid's lyrical ability on this. It's actually insane. To be honest, Maco doesn't even have a bad verse on I Made This Ish Before You Guessed It, although Everlasting could do without Zeus as he's mixed weird. He's like lower than the beat. It's also a pretty long song with a weird chorus, and the track Pistol sounds like OG Maco could have fit perfectly with the odd future wave. OG Zay had a lot of potential but fell flat for me. Best track is Slipping in my opinion. Tax Free EP is no skips, 9 out of 10 easily. OGG Everlasting is a collab group cut. It even has Larry June on it back when he was signed to OGG, which is something that's pretty cool. It's an interesting listen to say the least. Also, this isn't from any of the above projects, but Maco had another song with Jid featuring Earth Gang, and it's pretty fire as well. This specific track is called 1010. On June 3rd, 2015, XXL would finally reveal the members of their annual freshman list. This would be a huge moment for OG Maco, putting him in the forefront of many other talented artists. Dej Loaf, Fetty Wap, Goldlink, K-Camp, Rory, Shy Glizzy, Tink, Vince Staples, Kid, and of course, OG Maco. His solo freestyle would get a very lukewarm reception. It was clear he actually freestyled the entire thing, which isn't something you're actually expected to do. Maco would go on to say this about the solo. The XXL freestyles are a huge chance for you to really show off your skills. So most artists rap pre-written verses to make themselves seem flawless. XXL would follow the solo freestyles with their famous group Cyphers, and Maco was paired with Goldlink and Vince Staples. I've listened to this cypher several times, and Maco spits a stellar verse here. Many commenters are quick to point out how well Goldlink's flow is with this beat and how sinister and sharp Vince's lyrics are. But I do believe Maco put the proverbial fire in the campfire, especially because this is also another off-the-top freestyle, and to do what he did actually takes skill. This would also be the same month OG Maco would sign a young and aspiring artist going by the name Doja Cat. For all intents and purposes, this was a very active month for OG Maco and his team. Unfortunately for Doja, signing to OGG would not be the best move for her career. At the time of her initial signing, Doja Cat would suffer from writer's block and her career would begin to stagnate. She resorted to excessive use of Mary Jane in a desperate pursuit to find herself, but it didn't work much. And combine that with her feeling that the record label didn't really give her the attention she needed, she was stuck in a creative limbo for a little while. But I'm actually getting ahead of myself. A few weeks after Doja was signed, so a little into July 2015, OG Maco would get into yet another controversy. And this time, everyone was against him.
It's your boy, the Jack Numbers, and check it out, because you know what, man, OG Maco, he's a very interesting guy. I mean, an outspoken rapper who these days, you gotta wonder, is he still a rapper at all? I mean, his buzz is fading. I mean, listen, as far as being hot, okay, this guy is heading towards being ice cold. Rap about drugs and call girls hoes and wear Supreme and Bape, and you'll make it on my soul. Looking up to loser attitudes because this generation is afraid to strive for anything. Lowest common denominator is the hero. I love Future, but I also understand Future has destroyed countless lives by making it cool to be a drug addict. 56 Xans isn't cool, okay?
I mean, you've criticized Future before over...
I criticized everybody. I get so sick of everybody saying I criticize Future. I criticized everybody, and Future was the biggest thing at the moment, and so I said, like Future.
Like Future.
Like Future. Never criticize directly Future or criticize Future and say he's destroying the world.
To be clear, Maco talked with Future literally right after all of this happened, but the damage was already done. Future's fans would hack OG Maco's page and replace it with the following message. When users called the number, they'd be greeted with the message, "Thanks for calling to purchase OGMaco.com. Please leave your contact information and your current purchase offer price. Someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible." This is a perfect example of how audiences will take whatever you say at face value, while simultaneously stripping the context from it. Maco claimed that he learned from this experience. But only a month after this beef was squashed, he'd have complications with his label mates, the Migos. Although he was technically in the right for this one, this all being an argument that stems from this video where Migos claimed credit for starting the dab.
Too, man, I know y'all see the dab, everybody in the world dabbing, and we started, you know what I'm saying, kicking flavor, you know what I mean? Follow the dripping.
Now, dabbing was oil.
Nah, dab is swag. We ain't calling the swag no more with dab, RP the dab, and we ain't calling it turned up, no lit. Nah.
OG Maco would then send out his tweet defending Skippa Da Flippa, basically saying he started it. Migos got butthurt and claimed Skippa was a part of the Migo family, whatever that means, and asked what trend did Maco set? #rookie. Maco rightfully noted half the industry bit off his flows and ad-libs, and it's very obvious they did, quote, "Let me see them album figures," end quote. Remember when I told you guys Maco was complaining about his label holding back his debut album? Well, that's still happening at this point. OG Maco can call out Migos cell numbers because of this fact. Migos do a quick clapback saying that Maco is hoping their album does well because he's somehow affiliated with their project, insinuating Maco would get royalties. Hashtag rookie. I never got $1 from any Migo but Offset. Free him. I'm starting to think them album numbers locked up with him. Chef's kiss. Gagged like, what? Okay. Migos would pipe down right after this response, and I have to stand firmly with Maco on this one. Let that man have his recognition. I laugh more about this situation, but this is the point in the story where things start to get really, really dark. So before we get into it, please consider liking and subscribing if you guys haven't already. Okay, back to the video. OG Maco would release just one more project this year. This being 10 Moons 2, a follow-up continuation of a series he started under his previous stage name Maco Mattox. 10 Moons 2 sounds much more Kid Cudi / Travis Scott to me. Things would continue chugging along smoothly for Maco until the end of the year. December is usually a month of joy, appreciation, and giving back. But for OG Maco, his 2015 Christmas present would come in the form of a pretty fucked up rumor, stating that he was suffering from some kind of degenerative disease. Many commenters would allude to or straight up claim that he had AIDS. This rumor primarily stemmed from audio of Maco saying that he was dying slow to his girlfriend at the time, Lala. To be clear, this audio is... It's clear that Maco is on something that's messing with his head, and he's reaching out to someone who he, at this point, thought really cared about him, when in actuality, it couldn't be any further from the truth.
Ben, why?
Lala, listen to me. I know what dying feels like. You forgot I died in that car accident. And I came back. I know what dying feels like that. And dying slow calls you when I really need you.
Man, you let it lock and I see it didn't stop. It didn't finish recording.
I just needed you to be my friend.
Unless you deleted it.
You just can't. You just gotta be my mom. I don't know. I love you, Louise. I'm sorry, I just wasn't good enough for you.
You can literally hear her laughing with some dude as Maco is pouring his heart out. She makes no effort throughout this entire clip to reassure or ever even help Maco in the slightest. She only suggests going to the hospital a couple times, while simultaneously recording him, who, mind you, is supposed to be her lover and her friend. Let me break this down some more. She is the reason this audio even exists. OG had a recording of her admitting to spreading this because she thought it was funny, which means she is also the reason this rumor ever existed. I'm going to be candid with you guys here. If you have a partner like this, if this looks even remotely familiar to you, leave this person. They do not care about you. They will not be there for you at your lowest, period. OG Maco would go on to reflect about this time in his life. And some of the things he said, man, it's heartbreaking.
If that's what I'm going through, why would you try and destroy me with that? You know what I'm saying? Even if you heard that recording and that was what was going on in my life, why would you try and destroy me from that? That recording sounds like a guy in pain. I even had to listen to the recording myself to realize how close I was to not being here. You know what I'm saying? How close I was to offering my damn self.
Oh, so you were gonna yourself?
Yeah, I was extremely dog. I'm gonna keep it 1,000. I woke up one night with my gun in my hand. You know
really?
What I'm saying? I know, this is a true story.
So you had a loaded gun?
I had a loaded gun in my hand. I woke up with it.
Do you remember actually?
I don't even remember.
You don't remember? You were that high?
I remember crying. I remember waking up and I called that same ex and I was crying.
To know that he reached a low like this recently, and this time he actually went through with it. It's crushing. He called out for help and he drowned. And there's nothing anybody can do about it now. Maco would lead into the new year with the release of his project, The Lord of Rage, which is super hard for a title, okay? This dropped January 1st, 2016. Many people love this project, and it's clear to see why. Some of the tracks on this sounds like it could have been Designer on the vocals, but mind you, this was only 2 weeks after Designer made Panda and a whole month and a half before Panda actually blew up. Not to mention Maco used and created this sound much earlier in his career, clearly showcased in the OG Maco EP. So basically what I'm saying is OG Maco and obviously Future birthed Designer, which honestly should be pretty obvious. Who else was basically drowning their songs and screaming ad-libs at this time? Life would become more turbulent for Maco. He'd get into a rather petty beef with Lil Uzi over rock stardom in April 2016. Uzi would be crowned rap's new rock star by XXL, and OG would then crown himself as Atlanta's newest rock star as a cheeky rebuttal, which is kind of a dick move to be honest. He'd follow that up by saying that people don't just become rock stars, whatever that means. Somebody gotta show you the way. Stop playing with my name, implying that Maco showed Uzi the ropes of being a rock star. DJ Academics would then question Maco, asking, "You paved the way for Uzi?" with Maco then immediately confirming that he did. Maco started then drilling Academics for being a fake journalist for not being able to see he has artists copying or simply being inspired by his swag. Although Maco denies that any of Uzi's rock stardom is innovation on Uzi's part. Maco fully claims that sauce.
Me and Reese LaFlare did a lot for dudes and got so little credit for it. If everyone else is gonna be a B, I won't. F it.
Reese LaFlare being the creator of the "yeah" flow that Uzi is known for. Like the whole, "my wrist look like it's water, yeah. I'm on a date with your daughter, yeah." Another user chimes in and asks Maco who paved the way for him. And he responds, people like Waka Flocka and Little John. And might I add, Bone Crusher and Mystical to the list as well. Uzi finally responds and says that he only went out there for 2 days and knew that OGG wasn't the place to be. And honestly, this drama is so boring, okay? OG says,
"You, QC, and me and you got nothing to do with each other. You could have went anywhere and still be good.
And
what I do know is you were like my little bro and I showed you what I could. I don't know why you went Hollywood. But I wish you the best and I've done so a million times. My problem is with the media."
Uzi hits him with a side eye and ends the beef with this nice cover piece. Like, I get where Maco is coming from, but this was the most brash, dickheaded way to do it. Definitely not a good look for my guy. But he gets a little bit of a pass from me because this is right after a very dark and emotional time from him. He'd also drop his project 7 Forever that same month, which is a 2-track EP that's pretty consistent. He followed that project up with OG Maco 2 Episode 1, The Duke of Summer, which released June 15th, 2016, and it feels like the entire 2016 SoundCloud wave in a nutshell. It's not my favorite project. I don't even know why he released this. It's really just not good in my opinion, but whatever. 3 days after that, on the 18th, he dropped the second half of this series, aptly titled OG Maco 2 Episode 2 Remember, which is kind of hard to find online, unfortunately, with the whole SoundCloud being nuked thing. But you can find this project on YouTube, and Maco is rapping like rent is due on this. It's mostly trap based, but really good. And honestly, you should have just dropped this and not the first part. 2.5 weeks after that, Maco would drop Breathe 2, Episode 1, Unite, as a continuation of the Breathe series, which, if we all remember, is a socially charged series talking about the blights of black culture, police brutality, systematic racism, and so on and so forth. This specific project goes for the more anthemic route, so it has much more singing and much more emotion. I recommend you to give this record a listen. It's not bad. I imagine Maco had more EPs planned for this year and more projects slated to be made, but this is the month where he would get severely hurt. On July 28th, 2016, OG Maco was having a fantastic time, partying it up with his friends, downing a few bottles, living life. They apparently got so lit that even the designated driver got drunk. You probably see where this is going. Fortunately, there was another person there that was not lit, so they were tasked with driving everyone back home. The only problem is, this person was basically a brand new driver, and with a car full of belligerent drunk people, this was not an easy task for them. To make matters worse, OG Maco did not have his seatbelt on, so when someone ran into their car, he'd be propelled forward, smashing his head into the dashboard. The force would be so great that he would shatter his orbital bone, fracture his skull in several places, and crack his vertebrae. And without his orbital bone, which is the bones around here that protect your eyes, like these bones here. His eye would actually drop into his face. And I don't think I have to say this, but this is exactly why you should always wear a seatbelt when inside a motor vehicle.
Orbital here and the bones here were f***ed.
So you cracked your skull, essentially.
Yeah, so my eye dropped.
Ugh.
You know what I'm saying?
Like it actually came out your
No,
head.
it didn't come out. It dropped down.
Oh, okay.
You feel,
into
my face.
This is primarily why there are several interviews and pictures of Maco with an eye patch on. His doctor was terrified that his eye would get infected if not covered during the healing process. And if that happened, they'd have to pop it out and work on it again. The silver lining to this story is that over time, this would give Maco minimal long-term issues, although he did periodically suffer from heart palpitations.
You shouldn't drink and drive, and people shouldn't text and drive. You know what I'm saying? You never should combine the three. So that's how that goes.
Do you have any memory on what was going on in your head at that moment?
Yeah, bro, it's not like a fucking concussion. You hit your face. You hit your face, you break shit.
This same month, Maco would enthrall himself in petty internet drama and get included in the Meek Mill versus Drake argument. Meek Mill would make the shocking claim at the time that Drake had ghostwriters. I know these days this is pretty well known, but back in 2016, everyone was under the impression that Drake wrote all of his raps. So when Meek sent this out, OG Maco would butt his head in and vouch for someone who he for some reason considered to be a friend, Quentin Miller. I say for some reason because Quentin publicly dissed Maco at this time, and then Maco later revealed he and Quentin were friends up until the point that Quentin started working for Drake. Maco basically was saying Quentin Miller is a fake friend who switched up once he got some clout. He had been acting foo-foo months prior to all of this happening, which honestly isn't surprising. Many people in the music industry will use you and be friends with you until they're in a better position. The industry is full of snakes, and judging from the literal hours I spent watching Quentin Miller talk about his life and career and yada yada yada, he's a victim of letting anyone with power and clout walk all over him, and will absolutely throw anyone that doesn't hold those two qualities under the bus if it means he'd look more favorable. I haven't watched any of his more recent interviews, but at the time, this was the timing he was on. After this, Maco would lock into the studio and drop 3 more projects to finish out 2016. Black Phil Collins in September 2016, For Scott on November the 6th, 2016, and a joint project titled Dynasty with J5 November the 18th, 2016. I like the second half of Black Phil Collins more than I do the first, with my favorite track being Prayer Line. For Scott is pretty cool. It's actually a tribute to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I mean, that's one of my favorite. I'm kidding. It's most definitely a tribute to Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi.
Assuming that's how you pronounce his name, I don't actually know.
With Maco saying this about the project: I made For Scott because Kid Cudi helped me become the man I am. Quote, for the man on the moon who taught us all not to give a F. Fight on, dream on. Dynasty is mainly composed of Atlanta trap music. It comes complete with a DJ and all. This would actually be OG Maco's last EP. Like last EP he had ever dropped ever. Okay, like this is it. This is the last one. And as we head into 2017, I want to remind you guys that OG still has not released his debut album, despite it being done for several years at this point. 2017 would be a year where Maco primarily enjoyed his life. He'd do some touring and only drop 2 projects this entire year. This being Children of the Rage and OG Maco 3. 2 fantastic albums. They're really great. OG Maco 3 is especially stellar. Doja Cat would actually be featured on the track Monster on Children of the Rage, and she gave an amazing and heartfelt performance on that. You guys should check that out.
Hey man, so we sliding around, man. The OG Maco 3 coming.
What's up, man? Happy birthday, do your thing, OG Maco 3, you mother sucker.
Little bitch.
I didn't know exactly where to place this, but at some point during 2017, XXXTentacion would be performing at LA Live, and he and Maco would exchange a few words together.
He's like, why do you do that shit, bro? How do you get through it? Like, how do you get through knowing like this was supposed to be yours? And he said it, he didn't even say it like real arrogant, you know, like he said it in a way like he just turned around, like, and you seen like, you know, it was a fucking massive packed out, sold out crowd, and he was like, this was supposed to be yours.
Wow.
Like, how do you deal with that, bro? Like, that shit would drive me crazy. And if you ever talked to X, you know, he was real about when he said shit.
But did you take offense to it?
No, no, like I knew what he was saying.
Right.
I was like, well, I mean, as long as somebody like you happened, then it was all worth it.
Now, judging from the information in this clip, I'm almost positive this was during his show at the Novo in LA. June 6, 2017. And as I said much earlier in this video, OG Maco was doing the unpolished version of what X succeeded at doing. I don't think Maco was quite the artist as X. I'm not saying Maco was bad by any stretch of the word, though admittedly, I had initially assumed as much before really doing my research on him. I knew of his influence because of random interviews where he kept constantly getting name dropped, but I'm gonna be honest, I assumed he failed at capturing more popularity because of his musical abilities. And after listening to literally everything he has ever put out, this assumption couldn't be any further from the truth. OG Maco was a great artist. I'm just happy this interaction ended on a happy note. And with that, we continue on to 2018. In 2018, OG Maco would do 3 notable things. Number 1, he'd announce his retirement from music, going on Instagram and stating, quote, "This isn't coming from a bad place, but after this year, I will no longer continue being OG Maco. I have given all I can give as OG Maco, and I'm thankful for everything that you all have given me. But I want to be human again. I'm tired of being a product. I won't be holding any more music. Once covers are made, I will be releasing everything I have in the vault, and projects, singles, and features on all streaming platforms. And then I'm done. I have made this decision with a sound mind and after many losses, and I feel it is best for my soul." I think if Maco never made, you guessed it, or rather capitalized on the wave he created fully, his career would be in a much better spot. It's clear he had the raw talent and skill to be an amazing artist. He genuinely put out heat for years, all while people were dragging his name through the mud, calling him a one-hit wonder. But he could never catch that spark again. Number 2, apparently he was also in a TV show called Shootouts, although I couldn't find any information on this. No clips, no videos, no nothing. IMDb says that Eric Roberts is in this. Yeah, the same Eric Roberts from The Dark Knight and The Expendables, but nothing. It's like this show never even existed, or likely just never got finished. Number 3, he dropped this awesome track titled Pigs that's actually really good. I'm sure he dropped more heat in the form of random tracks, but that was the one that caught my eye. And here is where things would take a turn for the worst. Sometime early 2019, Maco would be traveling in Seattle. He had a small cut near his eye, but it was nothing serious. If you've ever been to Seattle, then you know it rains there quite often, and as such, it was raining there on this specific day as well. It would turn out that Maco's cut would get infected with bacteria that was somehow in the rain. This bacteria would cause necrotizing fasciitis in his face. He would almost immediately start feeling the effects of this infection, as most people who suffer from this affliction go through severe pain, redness, swelling, and flu or fever-like symptoms. Maco would say online that his infection led to a rash that was improperly treated. "So much healing has occurred thanks to God and my doctors that I'm willing to show all a fraction of what I've been going through. I was improperly treated for a minor rash and ended up with a skin-eating disease for the last few months. This is the best it's looked. I hope it gives someone hope."
Necrotizing fasciitis. The media, of course, don't want to call this necrotizing fasciitis. They call it the flesh-eating disease, but that's wrong. The disease is caused by a bacteria that releases toxins that kill human tissue. They are not literally eating the flesh. As they spread, the toxins break down cell membranes, leaving behind dead tissue and creating a condition called gangrene. Megadoses of antibiotics are given, but the only sure way to stop the spread is to cut out the infected area.
It was known that he had a flesh-eating disease that pretty much just altered the way he looked. It changed his appearance, obviously out of his control.
OG Maco would reveal that many of the people he thought were friends never checked up on him. Quote, "I've been going through this alone 90% of the time, without the support of the person I love, without most of my friends, without anything but my own strength and God. Girlfriends, lovers will leave you at your worst. Friendship is many times just a word. Actions are everything. Believe in those who show you actions worth believing in." It's unclear who he was referring to here as the person he loves, but one could only jump to the rocky conclusion that maybe he was referring to his girlfriend, Gianna Saraceno. I just know that they were together for almost 9 years, and then I did some basic math.
That's all that happened. Was I went to Seattle. I was out in the rain. There was some wrong water hit me. It got into a cut I had on my eye. It happened to have a bacteria in it, and it
ate your flesh.
Ate away.
This is also a good lesson for anyone interested in the music industry. Many people won't be there for you when everything crumbles. So treasure the people who show up for you, because those are the ones who actually care. This flesh-eating disease would really take a lot out of OG Maco. He would just take time to heal and enjoy life with his partner for a year until 2020, when he dropped his mixtape with Lord Fubu titled Maco Got That Flame, a spin on Lord Fubu's tagline that goes, "This is a good project, period." Like, embarrassingly good. Then in 2021, Maco would finally drop an album, this being The God of Rage. Now, if you've been keeping track, OG Maco was supposed to release his debut album all the way back in 2014. That's how long he was waiting for QC to stop dragging their feet. This album isn't even released under QC, by the way. It was dropped under Desperado Records. Actually, a lot of the tapes I mentioned before were dropped as mixtapes because of QC. He literally couldn't put out an album. Maco was shelved that entire time and tried to make the best out of a very poopy situation. And with that being said, this project is like Kid Cudi meets Playboi Carti. It even has the whole vampire aesthetic on the front cover. The problem I have with this project is that while there are certain styles that he certainly helped create on this album, a lot of the flows and sounds he's using are evolved versions of what he helped create. Which actually begs the question, if you create a style that someone then takes and then adds to it, then someone else takes that and adds more things to that. Are you then jacking that person? I think so, because once it leaves you and grows with another person, it's not the same thing. Although you do get credit for providing the base that it was all lifted off of. You guys tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. 2 years later, OG Maco would release what many thought was the debut album he was teasing since 2014. But Maco would reveal that he chopped up that album into 2 mixtapes, namely the Black Phil Collins tape and OG Maco 2 Episode 2. What we would get in 2023 was an EDM album that actually wasn't bad. It's a nice listen, and if you like poppy EDM cuts, then this should scratch the itch. Although it was quite jarring turning this tape on and expecting trap music, and literally none of the tracks here are that. It's 100% EDM music. Later in the year, Maco would lose a close friend that was a part of OGG from the beginning, this being Queen Losa, the first lady of OGG.
Hey, I'm Losa, I rap. And I'm the first lady of OGG.
It's unclear how she died, but many of her close friends and family were heartbroken over the news, especially because Losa had lost the love of her life just a few months prior. With her writing, "I lost the love of my life, my real true love, once in a million lifetimes type of love. He was the only person that understood and accepted me for me. I don't wish this pain on anyone. My soul is shattered beyond repair. I love you to the moon and back, Papa Bear." Judging from the fact that she was so young and this happened 3 months after he died, I don't think I have to say it, but only close friends and family know for sure. I'm not sure what Maco was up to during 2024, but judging from this tweet in late 2023, I'ma miss being OG Maco, it was fun, and this tweet from August 2024, see y'all October 28th, until then, workout emoji, he was likely spending a lot of time moving on and figuring things out. One user asked him, "What's the new moniker then?" during his initial announcement, and he replied, 7, see you there. But as far as I can see, nothing actually ever happened with this. October would fly by, and in late November, he'd tweet a bunch of magician hats, which now seems pretty ominous with the news of his passing. 27 days later, on the 12th of December 2024, while his family was out of town for the weekend, Maco would be alone battling with his inner demons and slowly losing. Then around 10 a.m., a neighbor would hear a gunshot go off next door and immediately call the police. It's unclear if Maco was intoxicated or under the influence of any stimulants at the time of the shooting. Maco was in desperate need of help. Police would immediately rush to the scene and find him unresponsive but alive. They managed to get him to a hospital pretty quickly, but the damage was already done. It is said they also recovered the gun used in the attempt on his life, although it's unclear what they discovered with this evidence. One thing is for certain though, Maco would fight for his life over the next 2 weeks, and it would seem there was hope for him.
His family put out a statement pretty much saying, "We want to inform OG Maco's fans, friends, and supporters that he is currently in critical but stable condition, receiving the best possible care, and we are staying hopeful as he continues to fight. At this time, we kindly ask that you respect our privacy, of course, but if you would like to send any messages or have anything you wish to get to the family, please reach out." They stated, "Please know all official updates regarding OG Maco's death will come directly from his social media accounts. This will be the only source for valid information. Thank you for understanding, support, and continued prayers during this difficult time.
Despite being in a coma, his condition was actually stable, until things would spontaneously take a turn for the worse, and toxins would spread throughout his body. It's said that the doctors struggled to acquire a proper brain scan and flush these toxins out at the necessary time. So, on December 26, at the age of just 32 years old, OG Maco, Benedict Chiajalam Hisaba Jr. would tragically pass away. The news would shock fans and casual listeners all around the world. Some people assumed his flesh-eating disease was the culprit, some assumed it was a freak accident, and others knew how intentional this result really was.
There was a lot of different narratives going on about what happened. So I'm glad that they clarified, like, the only real source of information you're gonna get is from him directly.
I could go on a tangent about how you shouldn't ever consider doing this, the effect on your family for doing this, or even the effects on your community for doing this. I could say it all eventually gets better, or at least you could make it get better. But this time around, I'll simply say these two quotes, which I found necessary to utter. It isn't weak to ask for help. It's like using a flashlight when you are lost in the dark.
Like I said earlier, you don't know how anyone's doing behind closed doors. Make sure you check in on your people. Make sure you tell your loved ones you love them. And don't feel ashamed to just pick up the phone, call your grandma, text your mama, say how you been, ma? How you doing today, ma? I love you, ma. Don't, you shouldn't have a big enough pride or ego to do that.
Though no one can go back and make a brand new start, anyone can start and make a brand new ending.
At the end of the day, you never know anyone's mental health. You never know really how someone's doing behind closed doors. We've seen it happen time after time again. I really don't even have to get into it. Everyone knows this by now. We don't know how anyone's truly doing behind closed doors.
Thank you guys for watching my documentary on the life of an incredible man. And if you guys haven't already, please consider becoming an ally of evil by hitting that subscribe button. It helps me make more content like this.
RIP OG Maco. It's a little unfortunate. This is the topic that, we finally got to collab with my boy, Actually Evil. Shout out to my boy. Shout out to my guy. Make sure you guys subscribe to Actually Evil. He's doing something crazy for y'all. Y'all see the videos he's dropping. Underground World V1.
Make sure to like and subscribe on his channel if you want more of this content. This has been Actually Evil, and peace.
If all goes well, you stop saying color anyway. You just say he's a rapper. He's a rock and roll artist. She does pop. That's in a perfect world, we all appreciate where we come from, but that is not the basis on which you judge the material that is being outputted.